Welcome to the Jaybe show on Revolutionary Blackout Network. I am your host, James Fauntleroy. So good to see all of you here joining me today on this beautiful Sunday. It is September 7th, 2023. We are live for you today. So good to see all of you here. And a special happy birthday to Zoya, who's in the chat. Good to see you, Zoya. Happy 21st birthday. So good to see you here joining us. I'm glad you're finally able to drink legally. Awesome. So good to see all of you here joining me today. Also, go ahead and give a like to this stream. Thank you so very much. Give birthday shout outs in the chat to Zoya as well. Please make sure she feels all the love. Look, here's what I want you to do. I want to take that love and spread it like warm peanut butter over some ciabatta bread. You know what I mean? Like that. All right. Also, if you guys have not, please also share, subscribe as well. If you guys want to, you guys can join our mailing list at revolutionaryblackout.substack.com so you guys can get live stream notifications like this, or as well any clips that we upload. And also, if you guys would like to, you guys can also email us at revolutionaryblackout@outlook.com. If you guys have any stories or any encouraging words you guys would like to send us, we appreciate it very much. So thank you. Well, guys, let's get into the chat. Let's say hello to people. And if you can, please make sure to take the poll. The reason why is because I want to check in with everybody. This is one of those streams where, as you notice, there's only one segment for this stream. Because number one, I feel like it's going to go long. So I don't want to push this stream to go past what I need it to. But at the same time, I want to do more of a deep dive and not just talk about it, but I want to get into how we're feeling as people, right? Because a lot of times we talk about the numbers and the figures. We talk about I can't talk today. Statistics. We talk about all these different things almost in an abstract kind of academic way. But I want to bring us back down to earth, right? I want to bring us down to ground level so that we can see in ourselves and in our neighbors and fellow workers and fellow people that what the system is really doing to us. And I don't want it to be all doom and gloom, because I'm going to talk about some solutions towards the end as well, because the thing is, it's like going to a doctor. The doctor tells you have a problem, and then you're waiting with bated breath. Okay, so, and if the doctor doesn't give you a solution of how to fix your issue, what good is that doctor, right? What good is it for me to prescribe the problem without offering helpful solutions that we can have in order to make the working people, the poor people, the people who are downtrodden and marginalized? What good is it if I can't offer at least what I think and what seems to work around the world as a viable solution? So please make sure to take the poll. So let's get into saying hello to everybody and Zoya. And let's get into this. So we're going to start off with Kat coming in and saying, I work for the state government and I can't even afford a one-bedroom apartment at fair market value. I don't know how anyone is making minimum wage is surviving at all. And that's crazy, Kat, because you literally have a government job, which is supposed to be, livable wage, decent benefits, and yet you're struggling. And so imagine how many people who are in the private sector that are being exploited right now, how they are not able to. We're going to get into this because I think this is a very worthy conversation. Of course, Zoya's in the chat. She said, hit the like. Also, hit some love for Zoya. All right. Happy birthday. All right. We got Peace Dove says 1 meal a day. Look, nobody should have to go through that unless they want to. out of just they want to, but they shouldn't have to, even out of duress. No, you should not have to be limited to. And that's the crazy part. Like, people talk about, well, we just have to skip meals in order to survive. No, 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 no. Absolutely not. You shouldn't have to. That's not the way it's supposed to be. That's not the way it has to be. And don't give me the BS of, well, life's not fair. Then let's make it fair. Why don't we just lay down and accept it? Like it's like there's some all-seeing, all-knowing, invisible hand that just puts some type of plague on us, and there's absolutely nothing we can do. It's crazy. Corona Earth, thank you very much, by the way. Corona Ursa says, I'm physically fine in keeping up with finances, but I'm mentally close to or at burnout. That's a whole other conversation we can get into too. A lot of people, even if they're doing okay financially, they are being overworked still. Doctors, nurses out there, those of y'all who are making a livable or thriving wage, but you guys are working 50, 60, 70, 80 hours a week, right? Like, and we've got to remember, they're workers too. Just because they have, a significantly bigger salary than the rest of us doesn't mean they're not workers, right? And so they're being overworked as well. They're being exploited too. You don't think about your doctor being exploited, but a lot of doctors are. A lot of nurses are. And let's not get into CNAs and techs. They're definitely being overworked and underpaid. On top of it, we got to talk about it, baby. All right. We have GP coming in saying, if I didn't have some help from my family, I'd be homeless. That's the truth for a lot of us. A lot of us are having that truth right now. Jacqueline says, hey, JB. Hey, everyone. Good to see you, Jacqueline. Roger Meadows says, happy birthday, Zoya. Good to see you, Roger Meadows. And also, I think you know where I'm going with this show today, Roger. All right. Sean coming in saying, good morning, JB, and happy birthday, Zoya. Kime says, random question, but it just hit me. What is the B in JB if your last name is Fauntleroy? The B is for Brian. You see how I did that there? I made a show name out of my name. And by the way, there's a famous James Fauntleroy out there that's a big producer. And I'm sick and tired of people going, oh my God, I love your music. I'm like, baby, I'm the wrong guy. Are we both fluffy? Yes. Are we both black? Yes. Am I as musically talented as the other James Fauntleroy? No. So he produces music, I talk. So that's the difference. So it's James B. Fauntleroy versus James Fauntleroy. So I had to, it's kind of like Michael B. Jordan versus Michael Jordan. Do you know what I mean? If Michael B. Jordan didn't put the B there, then everybody would be like, Michael Jordan, what? Right? So, yeah. You kind of have to do that. Or there's also there's a Vanessa Williams and then a Vanessa, I think, K. Williams. There's two Vanessa Williams. And they're both actresses, right? But one is the famous one that was also Miss America, and the other one is another actress that she's actually been on shows like The Cosby Show and things like that. But there's two different ones with the same name, right? So, yeah. Just in case anybody was curious. All right. Blue Sky at David Michael says, wait, what is that? Is that an elephant? Good to see you in the chat as well. Jacqueline says, I'm doing okay, but if I didn't live with my daughter and we can pool our resources, I'd be up Ish Creek without a paddle. That's a lot of us, man. That's a lot of us. Roger says, Jay, I'm already lining up you a story for Tuesday's show with something sweet. I'm fire, baby. I'm fire. and I never show a problem without providing answers. Your question, I answered the last option. Okay, thank you very much for that. And Roger says, this will allow me time in the future to go full blast. I'm happy for you, Roger. Yeah, definitely. You've been going through a lot over the last year. Like 2024 was not your year, bro. I'm hoping that 2025 into 2026, you'll be rocking and rolling. All right, we have Cala Bacom says, using my boyfriend's hotspot right now. Our Wi-Fi got cut off. Wi-Fi should be free. Oh no. Make sure to keep your phone on a charger because Wi-Fi hotspots drain your battery. Okay. Just please make sure to put your phone on the charger while you're using a hotspot because we don't want you to drain your battery because, you know, your phone is literally, or unless you're on your laptop, but keep that plugged in anyway. But your phone battery, it drains very fast. Vicky coming in saying, JB, I love the new dude. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. You know, it's funny. I used to do like a low, like a 2 or a 3 on top. My nephew, God bless him. He's one of those guys where he's very confident. Way more confident than I'll ever be. He's like, you know what, Unc? I think this will look good on you. I'm like, and I was like, I don't know. He's like, trust me, Unc, it will look good on you. I was like, I'll try it. And then the first time I did it, everybody was like, you look great. And I'm like, really? They're like, yeah. I'm like, oh, okay. And my nephew was like, see? I was like, okay, you got me. You know, but my nephew, he's my homie. He's been my homie ever since he was born. So he got style. He got some style. All right. Let me see. What else? Let me see. Oh, then we have Sasanak says, good morning. Good to see you, JB. Hello. Good to see you. Nice to have you. Oh, yeah. Roger says, Vanessa Williams. I was thinking exactly that. One of them was from New York City that shot Dredd in the head. Okay. Thank you very much for that. And then Kaylin says, they take 30% of your income, I think. I don't know. I have no income 2 years into disability appeals process. I'm hoping that you get the disability. And one of the good things, though, about once you're approved, they also retroactively from your first application, they retroactively go back. I think that's still the policy. They retroactively go back and then they pay you for all the months since you applied until you're approved. So let's say it took 6 months for them. Let's say you applied and then 6 months later you finally get approved. Well, that 6 month period between when you applied to when you're approved, they'll give you the monthly amount, all that in one lump sum. And then, you know, but be careful, because once you get that lump sum, you'd be like, oh, yeah, that's a good chunk of money, but you got to pace yourself because, you'll continue getting money after that. But at the same time, the amount that Social Security disability gives you, it is starvation level. I think, especially if you have to pay rent and you're not in an income stabilized apartment, or if you're not living with somebody that can help you financially, you need to really watch. So if that's like a cushion, use that to kind of supplement your income a little bit. And as you go through, please just, and if you still can work, if you can find like a little side gig or something like that, then do that and make sure to report. I hate saying this, but make sure to report your income. If it's like a regular legit job, please make sure just to report like your pay stubs and stuff, because they'll find out. Trust me. And then we have Chatter says the upper class keeps all the money, pays none of the taxes. The middle class pays all the taxes, does all the work. Really, it's the working class, but yeah, I still see exactly what you're talking about. Let's get into this because I really want to start this conversation because you guys, me included, it's getting hard out here in these streets. So let's get into it. So the collapse is here. And a lot of people are going, the collapse will collapse. Well, the economic collapse is here. So let's get into it. How are you doing? No, really. How are you doing? I ask this because people are struggling to no end. Many of us, including myself, are at a point where we're constantly in fear, constantly stressed about cost of living, about being able to make ends meet, being stressed about whether we'll make rent, whether we have enough for our electricity, whether we have enough food to eat to last us for the entire month, whether we have enough gas in the car, or whether we can have enough money to get that bus pass for the week. I'm not kidding. So many people are going through it right now. And so I want to know in the chat, and yes, people who are watching on the watch later, in the comments, please let me know, how are you doing? Now I put a poll, and I just want to show the poll because I want you guys to see, I want you guys, if you're watching this on rewatch, just let me know. Tell me, how are you doing in this economy? Because a lot of people are struggling. And some of you may not be. And that's great. But I want to take a temperature of our audience. So we'll come back to this a little bit later. But right now, it's at 54 votes. It says, how are you doing in this economy? 6% already said, I hit rock bottom. 44%, a plurality of people are saying, I'm struggling to breathe. 26%, a quarter, says it's tough sometimes, but I'm okay. And then another, about a quarter of people are saying, I'm doing good so far. Take the poll, please. But I want people to chime in because there needs to be an honesty that happens with us about how we're doing. There was this prevailing thought over the last, I say, 40, 50, 60 years, that if you said something to the effect of, I'm poor or I'm broken, I have nowhere to turn to, just even acknowledging the fact that you are living in poverty is considered something that you don't talk about it. That's embarrassing. People think you can't afford. People think you can't afford. People think you can't afford. You are hiding your pain because of the thought that people will judge you. Number one, I'm going to say this, fuck whatever the hell they think. Everybody's struggling. And people who say they're not, people who claim they're not, some of them are lying. They're lying to save face so that people will think they're okay. It is okay to not be okay. And what I mean by that, it is okay to acknowledge the fact that you're not okay. We need to have this honesty among ourselves as the working class and say, no, I'm not okay. My family's not okay. My friends are not okay. So it's not just me. It's not just an individual problem. It is the system. Because once we start to come together with that fact, then we start to go, well, wait, you're struggling. You're struggling. You're struggling. We're all not lazy. We're all not stupid. We got a head on our shoulders. We use critical thinking. Our jobs are literally not paying us a living wage, or we have to do all these different types of work under duress, or we have to exploit ourselves under duress. Is that our fault? Or is it a systemic thing? Here's the thing, and I've said this before, and I will say it again. It is not your fault that you're in the position you're in. It is not your fault. That's the individualism talking to you that's saying it is. It's not. Because if it was, there'd be a lot less people going through what you're going through. Because they will be doing exactly what it takes in order to not be in that position. And yet here we are. So you're not crazy. You're not delusional. This isn't hyperbolic. The system is designed to make it this way. Let's get into some news while we're talking about this, because I think this is absolutely important. There is a lot going on right now. And I want to get into, let's get into this news article. Because this is deeply important for us to get into. Let me see. I had it here. Let's see. Let me see. Let me see here. Okay, well, I'll just go here. Okay, so let's take a look at this article. So this is out of Forbes. It says unemployment hits 4.3%, worse than expected. So it says the labor market appeared to downgrade further in August, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics data released Friday, the first by the agency after President Donald Trump ousted its leadership for alleged data manipulation. And then here's the key facts. It says the unemployment rate rose to 4.3% in August, above economic forecasts and July's reading of 4.2%, according to FactSet. The U.S. added 22,000 non-farm jobs last month, well below analyst projections of 80,000, and a steep decline from the 79,000 added in July, revised up from 73,000. The Commerce Secretary, Howard Lutnick, told CNBC ahead of the data release that he believed the jobs report would be more accurate after Trump ousted Bureau of Labor Statistics Commissioner Erica McIntyre last month, adding, "I think they'll get better." Earlier reports this week indicated labor market growth had slowed considerably after ADP reported private sector employment increased by 54,000 jobs in August, well below forecasts of 85,000 and July's 106,000 added jobs. The Labor Department reported jobless claims increased to 237,000 last week, the highest level since June. And just for everybody to know, when they talk about the jobless claims, these are people that are recently unemployed that are collecting unemployment. It's now people who are outside of that range, and I think the range is typically around 6 months of unemployment, they don't count those people. So the unemployment rate, the real unemployment rate, is actually higher. It's actually higher than that. They're just counting the people who are recently unemployed. But what about the people who have been chronically unemployed for between 9 to 12 months? Or people who have been unemployed for more than a year? Or for more than a year and a half? Or for 2 years? What about those people? Right? So we're not talking about them as well. You know, it's interesting because we don't even count the homeless and unemployed. Well, part of it, which because a huge portion of people who are homeless actually have jobs. Over 40% of people who are homeless have jobs. People who sleep out on the streets at night, over 650,000 of them. So give or take, somewhere north of 350,000 of them are completely unemployed, but they're not counted in the unemployment numbers. Wonder why? Well, because the politicians want to make it seem like things are better than what they actually are. This is the equivalent of having black mold on your walls and somebody takes a paintbrush and they paint it over and say, there's nothing to see there. But then you wait just a few weeks to a few months, and the next thing you know, those spores start popping up again. Because the problem never went away. The problem just got covered over just for a little while so that you can move in and they can take the rent from you. That's how the system works. Let's continue on. It says Fed Chair Jerome Powell suggested last month interest rates sitting below 4.25% and 4.5% since December could be cut if unemployment held steady. The Fed weighs its dual mandate of stabilizing inflation, which is largely driven interest rate setting policy over the past few years, with maintaining maximum employment. Analysts from Oxford Economics wrote recently that August jobs report would need to be significantly stronger than Wall Street expected to dissuade the Fed from cutting rates. There's a 99.1% probability that central bank lowers its benchmark rate by at least a quarter point after its next policymaking meeting on September 17th. So let's get into this. The jobs report was seen as a possible flashpoint for the labor market. After the U.S. added an average of 123,000 jobs from January to April, the U.S. is now slightly more unemployed people than job openings. The U.S. has slightly more unemployed people than job openings for the first time since April of 2021. So we have all these unemployed people, but not enough jobs. I wonder why. What happened a few months back, when Elon Musk had his little Doge Fest? Oh, right. Over 300,000 Black women actually lost their jobs, many of whom who actually worked in the private sector. Right? And also we now have the process of automation that's happening. So there's a lot of people that are losing jobs who otherwise would be employed because we have automation happening. And so now when people go, oh man, we have all these job openings, it's like there's more people unemployed than there are jobs. And the problem is even then, these companies aren't hiring. Just because they say they have a job opening doesn't mean they're actually hiring. Because a lot of them, per government policy, have to make it show that they're willing to hire people But just because they have the willingness to do it doesn't mean they actually have to do it. Why? Because these corporations are doing fine or even doing better with a skeleton crew. So why would they hire another person on? That's more money they would have to spend. So all they have to do is look like they're trying to hire. Put a few openings on LinkedIn and just leave it there. And then maybe conduct the interviews, but then leave them on red. And then that's it. And so then the companies get the benefit of, we're trying to hire, we just trying to look for the right applicants, and then they don't hire. Meanwhile, the people that are working there, they're being overworked and underpaid for half the wages. But the job's still getting done, but it's getting done for a lot less than what the company would need to spend. So they're not going to hire because the job, number one, is getting done. And so they're not going to spend the money to actually hire and train and pay another worker. Because they don't need to. And plus, the shareholders are giving more money on their dividend checks. So when they say, oh my God, all these places are hiring, no, they're not. They have job openings, but they're not hiring. There is so many people right now that have went to college, did all the right things. And because they did all the right things, now they can't even get a job because either one, they train for something that's no longer in demand. Remember, learn to code? Well, that ship has sailed. Or they went to college and now they're overqualified for the position. And so jobs are like, oh, sorry, you're overqualified. We would have to pay you a whole lot more, and we can't do that. But then if you don't go to school, well, then you're underqualified, so we can't hire you. And so they basically make it so that they can't hire anybody. They'll make these impossible standards, lofty standards that nobody really can meet unless you are an AI robot. Then, the job is yours. And AIs don't require pay. Automation doesn't require breaks. Automation doesn't talk back, doesn't complain, doesn't go to HR. You don't have to worry about AI sexually harassing other workers, so you don't have to worry about litigation. You don't have to worry about trying to, buy some cheap ass Domino's pizza or Little Caesars pizza and giving a pizza party to increase morale. There's no morale to increase. So that petty cash that it will pay in order to give you a few extra calories through some bread, cheese, and sauce, well, guess what? They don't need to do it no more. So they get to keep the petty cash. It gets to go back into the business or to the shareholders' profits. That's the system. If they can pay a machine to do it, or if they can have a machine do the same job for way less cost, they're going to do it. Because that's how capitalism works. Because the owner of the means of production wants to keep as much profit in his hands instead of giving it to the worker. That's the push and pull of this system. The worker wants to work as little as they can for the most wages that they can get. The boss class or the parasite class wants to extract as much from the worker as much as they can and pay them as little. And if they could pay them nothing and have them as slave labor, they definitely would. But slave labor it doesn't make the people happy. So instead, what they're going to do is they're going to automate that instead. And where does that still leave you? ADP's report in July findings an increase of 106,000 private sector jobs shows signals that were broadly indicative of a healthy economy. Poor jobs growth reading from the BLS in July, which included the largest 2-month downward revision since 1968, fueled Trump's decision to oust McIntyre, who Trump had also alleged had manipulated jobs data during the 2024 election. But apparently that person wasn't manipulating anything. And Trump was just pissed that jobs didn't increase under him. But that's the system. That's the system that everybody's like, oh my God, capitalism is the best system. Well, a system that that fails every 4 to 7 years, where we actually have to bail them out. Is that really a successful system? It has to be bailed out every 4 to 7 years. When was the last time we actually had a recession? Was it back in 2020? We had a recession. Every 4 to 7 years is 2025. We're on time for another recession. On time. So that's part and parcel of what's going on, as we can see right now. It's also the pay as well. And I want to get into this too, because a lot of people are outraged. And the outrage is coming a lot from Gen Z, which is absolutely justified, because they're seeing what we millennials saw. And what we millennials saw, Gen X has been seeing for like the last 15 years. And what Gen X has been seeing for the last 15 years, boomers have been seeing for the last 30. And so we've reached a peak. And where was the peak? Of when things were economically good for everybody. And by everybody, I put that in air quotes, because it's mostly, in particular, white people. It wasn't as good for us black people. Things were good right around the time we hit 1971, 72. And then right when we hit that peak on that elevator, not that elevator, that roller coaster, right then we started to descend. That's when it started to happen. Right around the time of Richard Nixon, Tricky Dick. And we were going down, but then it went into a steeper decline once we hit Ronnie Reagan. And then it got a little steeper when we got to Willie P. Then by the time we got to George W., we were off to the races. And so people rightly are pissed. Let me share this, because this is minimum wage in its physical form. Let's get into this.
We have an issue. Sausage, egg, and cheese from a bagel. $6.50. For free, thankfully. For fuck's sake, for free, finally. Something for free. Another sausage, egg, and cheese. $6.50. I got a water bottle. And a Diet Sprite. $17.50. $17.50. That's a problem. I looked at the guy. I'm like, that's my total? He goes, yeah, $17.50. I'm like, 2 bagels and a Diet Sprite and a water, $17.50? He goes, yeah, brother. This is how much someone makes an hour. I have someone's minimum wage in my hand. This is someone's minimum wage. Do you understand what I'm saying? This is someone's minimum wage. This is someone's minimum wage.
Two bagel breakfast sandwiches, a bottle of water, and a Diet Sprite. And that's somebody's minimum wage. And you wonder why Gen Z has more favorability for socialism. You wonder why? See, here's the thing, right? All those people who cry about, oh my God, socialism is so horrible, blah, blah, blah. Look, and they're going like, why are all these young people, why are they favorable to socialism? Because capitalism is a mother. It's a mother. It's not us that's driving them there. It's not me. I'm a commie, but I'm not the one that's driving that opinion. You know what's driving the opinion of young people towards socialism? Capitalism is doing that. Capitalism is doing the best job that we could ever wish for. Because it predicates a system based on exploitation to take advantage of people, especially in the years where they're the most juicy. When they are in their childbearing years, when they're at their strongest, when they have the most energy, this is when you exploit them the most. And guess what? They are so exploited so much to the point where they're now opening their eyes. They're going, wait a minute, something ain't right. Back in the day, somebody who's 28, 29 years old can get their first home, get married, have a couple of kids, and maybe a pet, and or be able to afford a vacation once a year. Back then, you could do that. You could hit 30 and have a mortgage and a retirement account by the time you hit 30. How many of us millennials have a mortgage and a retirement account now? Anyone? Hell, most of us ain't even got nothing in our savings. I bet you half of you don't even have any money in your savings. Or if you do, you're pulling money out of your savings just to be able to put in your checking so you can be able to afford some food or afford some gas. Tell me I'm wrong. How's that 401k doing? How many hours you worked last week? If you had a $400 emergency, would you be okay? Okay, I thought so. And so, rightly, Gen Z, they are livid. Because just like us millennials, they were sold a bill of goods and it turned out to be nothing but BS. And that's exactly what happened. They told us, go to college, get yourself a job at some white collar business, and the next thing you know, you'll be able to live a comfortable life. You won't be rich, but you'll have a retirement account. You'll have all your basic needs met. You'll be fine. And we were taught that ever since we were little. Hell, those of us who are black, we were showed that ever since we were little. Look, how many of us were raised, especially those of us who are black, were raised on watching A Different World? We were taught that if you go to college, you'll make something of yourself. How many sitcoms back in the day made fun of blue collar workers, especially those who are in the trades? Especially ones who were like in plumbing or something like that, right? I'm not saying that going to college is superior or inferior. What I'm saying is the system prioritized one form of education over another and then sold us a bill of goods to the point where now, how much is a degree really worth? But make no mistake, automation can also come for the blue collar jobs too. And really, is the automation this problem? It's part of the issue, but really, it's the people who actually own the means of production that are causing this issue. I want to get into this as well, because we need to talk about the Black community. And you're saying, JB, why do we have to talk about the Black community? Isn't that getting into identity politics? No, because this is tied to class. Let me see. Let me put this in a way that you'll be able to understand. How do you know when a banana is starting to get ripe? You buy a bunch of bananas and they're all completely green. How do you know that the ripening process has started? When you start to see a little bit of what? A little bit of yellow, right? It starts at the bottom. It starts to start to creep up, right? Creep up towards the stem, right? So you start to see that little bit of yellow. I'm going to show you the yellow that shows that we are headed for an economic collapse. You want to see the yellow? Look at the Black community. Let's share this right here. This is out of the Wall Street Journal. Black Americans are losing jobs and a warning for the economy. Remember what I said a few weeks back when over 300,000 Black women lost jobs in the public sector? I said that you need to keep an eye on the Black community, because once we start to suffer, it follows for everybody else. We are the canaries in the coal mine when it comes to exploitation. We are the canaries in the coal mine when it comes to marginalization. So therefore, if you keep watch and if you see us suffering even more, guess what? It's coming to you. It's going to happen. And guess what? Baby, it's already here. Let's get into this article. It says unemployment among Black people reaches highest level since 2021. I am in the fight for my life. So it says unemployment in the U.S. remains historically low at 4.2%. Yet Black workers are living in a different reality. Unemployment for Black Americans has surged to 7.2%, the highest level since October of 2021, when the job market was still recovering from the pandemic. The drop in unemployment is a warning sign for the labor market and threatens to unravel unemployment gains made by Black workers during and after the pandemic. Seasonally adjusted unemployment is up significantly for college-educated and non-college educated Black workers. This coincides with a general slowdown in the labor market that has locked many workers out of the job market for months. Black workers have borne the brunt of that downturn, according to economists, and a reflection of entrenched racial disparities. Black workers are more likely to hold low-skilled and junior-level jobs than their white counterparts, making them more vulnerable to layoffs. They have long faced discrimination in the labor market that can become more pronounced when overall hiring slows, as it has in recent months. So, with that being said, here's the thing. If unemployment is getting higher, guess what? Guess who's going to be picked further for jobs over us? It's not merit-based. It hasn't been merit-based ever since the inception of this country. This is why people try to implement certain programs, though the programs really didn't work that well. They didn't. Like affirmative action and DEI, they didn't really work that well. They actually worked more for white women than they did for the rest of us. But these were put in for a purpose. Why? Because we were constantly being overlooked, even though we were the qualified ones, even though a lot of us were even more qualified. What, Black people in the chat, I want you to finish this phrase for me. Black people have to work twice as hard to get Who said it in the chat? Who said it in the chat? Black people need to work twice as hard to get what? Spell it out for me, folks. Y'all know the answer. And so there we go. There we go. Half as far. Thank you, Violin. This is why when it comes to unemployment, we get scared because we know once we lose that job, who do we have to compete with? People who are going to be upheld higher than the rest of us based on the amount of melanin in their skin. And it's just a fact of reality because we live in a racist system. And racism and white supremacy in the system is pushed by capitalism in order to keep the working class divided. And so it's going to keep Black people as a lower class. There are subsets in the working class, and you got to realize that. So the subsets in the working class are Black, women, LGBTQ, disabled, neurodivergent, and so on and so forth. That's how it is. It's not just one class that's equal. It's not just equal in one class. Like Black people who are working class and white people who are working class are still not even equal. We're not. And I'm sick and tired of people acting like, oh, well, it's all equal. No, it is not, baby. There are classes within the working class. That's the way it is. And so with that being said, even when we get to a point where we get unemployed, then we have to compete. And God forbid we have a Black sounding name. God forbid we have a name Keisha, Javante, Kwame. God forbid we have one of those names, and it shouldn't be that way, but it is. And you go ahead and look it up. Now, even these AI models, they're even teaching the AI models to reject people based on their name. Yes, there's a strata within the working class. And this is part and parcel of something that a lot of people just don't take into account. Even some white people on the left don't take this into account. You gotta also measure this too. This is why RBN exists. This is why. But the problem is that Black people are the canaries in the coal mine. Because between us and Native Americans, it starts with either one of us or both of us at the same time, and then it follows through onto everybody else, including unemployment, including austerity, including poverty and marginalization. Keep your eye on the Black community. It says also a recent increase in unemployment among Black college graduates points to the possible impact of federal job cuts. The federal workforce has a disproportionate share of Black workers. We saw this with 300,000 Black women, remember? I am in the fight of my life right now, that says from Kenya Jenkins, 52 years old, who has been actively looking for work since being laid off from her job as a contractor for the Department of Health and Human Services in December. Jenkins, who has a master's degree in Human Services Public Health, had to leave her apartment in Maryland as a result and move in with relatives in New Jersey. She has said she still owes her former landlord $12,000 in rent. Overall, unemployment remains low, but with hiring slow to a trickle, is the labor market with little margin for error. Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell recently indicated that the job market has cooled enough to potentially justify interest rate cuts in September. And so this is giving examples of people who have had to leave, who are trying to get jobs, and they're leaving the public sector and having to get into the private sector, right? It says in 2023, the share of Black workers who were unemployed fell to 4.8%, the lowest level since the Labor Department began tracking such data in 1972. The gap between Black and white unemployment shrank to the lowest level on record that year, and Black workers for years saw higher wage gains. Labor shortages meant people could more easily find work, while some companies tried harder to diversify their workforce in the wake of demonstrations following the murder of George Floyd by police in 2020. So it has gone into the other direction. And so as we see, there are a lot of Black people who are basically being locked out. It says Black workers make up 18.7% of the federal civilian workforce, compared to around 13% of overall workforce. That is partially because of the robust anti-discrimination rules in federal hiring, and partly because of the Washington, D.C. area has a large Black population, said Derek Hamilton, the chief economist at the AFL-CIO. So, as we see now, college degrees don't matter as much as they used to. And who is leading in the amount of college degrees, especially out of all demographics, with Black women? Now, those college degrees, they're not worth as much as they used to be. And so this is why we say keep an eye on what Black people are going through, especially in this country. I want to turn my attention as well to this too. Because when we talk about what many groups are going through, it is important that we take a look at what are we sacrificing, and how are we able to make it in this system. So guys, please make sure to take that poll. I want to share this as well. Thank you for recommending this segment to me, Roger. So let's take a look at this, and let's just go.
Shockingly actually dropped some truth bombs on CNBC about how divided the country is on whether you make over $100,000 or not. Let's take a listen.
Part of what we also saw was that, particularly with middle and lower income consumers, they're feeling under a lot of pressure right now. I think there's a lot of commentary about what's the state of the economy, how's it doing, and what we see is it's really kind of a two-tier economy. If you're upper income, earning over $100,000, things are good. Stock markets are near all-time highs. You're feeling, quite confident about things. You're seeing international travel. All those barometers of upper income consumers are doing quite well. What we see with middle and lower income consumers is actually a different story. It's that consumers under a lot of pressure in our industry. Traffic for lower income consumers is down double digits. And it's because people are either choosing to skip a meal. So we're seeing breakfast. People are actually skipping breakfast, or they're choosing to just eat at home. And so for our business, which has a significant group of consumers which are in that middle and lower income, we needed to step in with something like what we're doing here.
Did you hear what the McDonald's CEO said? Skipping breakfast now. We're at a stage now where we went from trying to buy food as cheap as possible to now we have to skip meals in order to survive. We're no longer just buying cheap. We're now skipping meals. We're at that stage. How are you doing? How's your family doing? Loved ones, parents, if you have adult children, nieces, nephews, siblings. How's your best friend doing? How's your cousin, grandparents? How are they doing? Check on your family, especially the ones that you don't hear from when it comes to these issues. Check on them because they may be struggling the most, but they're just keeping quiet because they don't want to worry you. Check on them. Make sure they're okay. There's a lot of us that aren't. What world do we have to live in where we treat breakfast as a luxury? What world is that? Formless Dream says breakfast. What is his luxury? I can't remember the last time I ate before lunchtime. Wild, right? Crazy, right? Please take the poll. Let me know how you're doing.
Listen to the CEO of McDonald's. People are skipping breakfast. Now, I will say on McDonald's, it's still outrageously expensive compared to where it used to be. I don't eat McDonald's maybe more than 2 or 3 times a year. My wife gets hungry for it. She's nursing, whatever. She gets what she wants. So I go to McDonald's. The McGriddle, it cost me $9. And I tweeted about that. People made fun of me because apparently I don't use the app. No, I'm not degenerate enough to have the McDonald's app or to be knowledgeable enough about set deals. But in my head, as a child of the 90s, you're on a road trip and you roll up to McDonald's. How much do you think that should cost? Couple bucks, at $1.99? And yet it's not just the price. What he really said there, which is important, is if you look, he said below 100,000, you're seeing a massive reduction in lower income consumers being able to go out to eat, and people are skipping breakfast. Now, I think
also another point I wanted to add that I don't think that Sagar included, which it might just be a slight oversight, but the amount of people that are earning below $100,000 is actually growing. The population of people who make under $100,000 is growing. That means that the working and poor class is getting larger. That means the people who were thought of being middle, especially upper middle class, they're trickling down into middle class, and the middle people in middle class are trickling down into working class. So much so to the point where now they are struggling. And I'll put you like this. Even if you're making 6 figures a year, even if you're making $100,000, you're not doing that great either. You're not. No. No. You need to be making above 120,000. Somewhere north of that. In order to truly be middle class, you need to be making above 120,000. Between 120 and 150,000, you need to be making somewhere above that. Even if you're just hitting 100,000, maybe 105, 110,000, you're not doing that great. No. One cup says $3 for a tiny hash brown. Remember when hash browns were 99 cents? And I'm not talking, that's not that long ago. We're talking 2015-ish, 2016. Remember when you can get a double cheeseburger? This is back in my young adult days. Remember when you can get, and I don't eat McDonald's no more, especially since the genocide. Hell no, no, screw McDonald's. And plus, I'm eating a whole lot differently now, so I don't eat stuff like that anymore. But remember when you used to be able to get a hot and spicy McChicken, a double cheeseburger, a small fry, and a small drink for $4. All that for $4. You used to be able to get all that for $4. Me and my homeboys would be up at like 2 o'clock in the morning, just chilling, talking, joking. One of my homeboys goes, "Man, I'm hungry, man." He's like, "Man, that 24-hour McDonald's still open. You want to roll me and grab a couple things to eat?" "All right, cool. Hey, you want to come with us?" "Nah, man, I'm going to stay here in bed." "All right, well, what do you want?" "All right, well, I'll take, these things." "All right, here's a $5. The dollars for change. I mean, the dollars for taxes." "All right, cool, bet. Go, come back. Here's your food, man." That's how it was back in the day. That's how it was, at least for me. We're talking 2005, 2006. Young adult, Jaybe. Me in my 20s. That's how it was. You know what my rent was when I had first moved out? I remember exactly what my rent was when I first moved out. I moved out at 18 years old. 18 years old. We're talking about 2002. I moved out at 18 years old. And it wasn't that, oh, well, I got kicked out or anything like that. No. I chose to move out on my own volition because my mom did a really good job of raising me and making me independent. Sorry, my mom did a really good job. Even then, she was like, "Are you sure you want to leave?" I was like, it's time for me to leave the nest. Right? Me and my mom, strong, great relationship. Still down to this day. We're friends. Me and my mother are friends. But I was independent, raised me very well. My rent when I moved out in a studio apartment in Orlando, Florida, $455 a month. Yep. $455 a month. That was my rent. And if I had a job making like 10, 11 bucks an hour, I would have been decent. Unfortunately, the job I had was only making like $7.35 and they were cutting hours. That's the reason why I got evicted. But you're talking about 2002, 2003. And so now you look at it. Dude said $6.50 for a sausage, egg, and cheese. Bro, that used to be, bro, you can get like 2 meals off of that, bro, back in the day. It's not that things have just gotten more expensive. Our dollar has gotten weaker. You can't go as far as you used to. Remember when it cost only $20 to go to the movies? And I'm talking about get a ticket for the movies and get concessions at the movie theater, all for $20. And you can get that for you and a friend. So it's crazy, man. These prices are crazy. But that's the corporate greed. Anyway, let's continue.
I think that's hopefully they're getting enough to eat, elsewhere and or trying to eat at home. But the totality of it is that, yeah, it might be marginally cheaper on a percent basis to eat at home, but it's still really expensive to eat at home. If you're talking about a cup of coffee, we've talked here about coffee futures, Folgers, and more. It's actually exploded in price. Even if you look at the basic necessities of goods, meat in particular, protein, the price is just astounding. You can still eat cheap if you want to, but it takes a lot more effort than it used to in the past. So if you put that,
a lot more effort, I think that's an understatement, Soccer. The only way you can really eat cheaper is by going to a food bank. You know it's getting bad when Aldi's and Save-A-Lot are now starting to feel expensive. That's how you know it's getting bad. My goodness. Continue.
Together, I think here is where you should listen to the CEO of McDonald's or the CEO of Walmart or these other people who have to cater to all of these customers. And now McDonald's is scrambling to try and bring back, below $5 meals and more because they can see the consumer cannot afford it. Yeah. That's the real tragedy.
Yeah, I mean, down double digits, he says, traffic from lower income consumers. I mean, that is a very significant sign. And it's not just that the prices are high, it's also that the wages are not keeping up. We covered previously, I mean, I think the two-tier economy comment is the perfect way to think about it. You've got the stock market that just keeps going up and up and up, seemingly totally divorced. And we'll talk more about what's going on there from the actual real economy, what people deal with trying to make ends meet on a day-to-day basis. And meanwhile, especially lower quintile wages are not keeping pace with inflation. So people are struggling. They're going into deeper and deeper debt. They are very pessimistic about the future. They are holding back on any purchases that they can. They're apparently skipping breakfast so that they can make it all work in their budget. So these are dire indications of where the economy is headed right now.
Absolutely. And there is some really troubling stuff behind the scenes. And I've talked about this in particular with the stocks I was like, man, I just don't get how with inflation, with reduction in consumer spending, tariffs, how can the market continue to go up? Well, now
exploitation. That's how it can continue to go up because you're squeezing people even further than they can survive. This is why I'm doing this show. This is why I have the poll up. This is why. They're squeezing people beyond recognition. How are you doing? If you're not doing good, say so. Please. Do not let it be a stigma that, we have to keep hush hush because we don't want people to think we're poor. Yes, we are all poor. We all are. Say it out loud. Say it with your full chest because it's not your fault that you're in that situation. It's not your fault. And it's not a victim mentality. And if you want to get rid of the victim mentality, then that means you got to get rid of the perpetrators. And the people with the perpetrator mentality are the people that wear $5,000 suits and sitting in boardrooms. They're the perpetrators. So in order to stop making victims, you need to stop having people making the victims. That is the problem. Everybody's not okay. 99% of us are not okay, meaning that it is not an individual problem. It is a systemic problem. It is systemic. That means it is baked into the system. You cannot pull yourself by your bootstraps out of this. If you can lift your entire body off the floor by your shoelaces, then you're not even a human. You're a meta-human. You're Superman. No human can do that. This is why the whole pull yourself up by your bootstraps example was created, to show how impossible it is for humans to use individualism in their day-to-day lives. It is impossible. You can't do it. None of us can. And nobody ever has. That's the thing. There's no such thing as a self-made man or woman or person. That doesn't exist, baby. How were you born? It took collective action in order for you to be conceived, right? How did you go to school? It didn't take individual action. It took collective action for you to go to school. It took collective action to build those roads. It took collective action to have those teachers. It took collective action to build that house you were raised in. It took collective action to be able to cultivate that food. It took collective action. So therefore, there's no such thing as a self-made person. It doesn't exist. It's a fantasy.
Now we have a little bit more of the story. Let's put this up here on the screen. Fantastic piece by the Wall Street Journal. Behind this season's bumper earnings, job cuts, price hikes, glum workers. Quote, consumer spending is not driving company profits as much as reducing expenses, improving efficiency. That could be a problem. They say American companies are once again beating profit expectations, but they're not doing it by banking on blockbuster consumer spending. Instead, the latest batch of quarterly earnings gets a lift from managers who are squeezing out costs, boosting productivity, turning to new technologies, all of whom have said they're holding down hiring, often while finding new ways to get employees to work more efficiently, aka work more, and are raising prices when they can. The processes are, quote, human light now. That is from one chief financial officer last month, telling investors about the initiative that includes automation upgrades. Global logistics say higher profit margins, despite a nearly 8% drop in revenue, even though there is a prolonged freight recession. How do you do that? You raise your prices. And so, yeah, the companies are doing fine. The investors in the stocks are doing great because that's what they demand. The number has to go up. It literally must. It's an American contract. It's like baked into our blood at this point. But what does it mean for all of you? You're paying more. You are working more hours for less pay. You are potentially not going to get a raise. You may even get a price cut, and then you'll be lucky to actually work, and continue in your job. Put that together, and it just makes a lot more sense about how exactly the McDonald's CEO with the straight face can talk about, oh, well, we have all of this traffic down, et cetera, and all of that. But then if you look at the way that they continue to juice their profit, it will be, the $5 stuff and maintaining sales there, while also, I guess, taking advantage of idiots like me who apparently roll up to the window and pay $9.
Pay full price.
Yeah.
What did I say a few months ago? How do they increase profitability in a corporation? One of them is by raising prices, which is being done. Another is by cutting costs for safety and regulation standards, which they lobby the government to do so that they can actually go around these. But it also harms us. So they got that. They also may cut wages, benefits, and jobs. And then that money that would have normally went to employees now goes to the shareholders. So this is how they're able to rake in record profits without having an uptick in consumer spending. And then on top of that, they're letting people go, they're firing people, and then they're putting in machines to do the work that other people would do, aka automation. AI, artificial intelligence. And so this is what's going on. And the crazy part is a lot of people are talking about how AI is coming after our jobs. Well, yeah. But this is going to be a bad feedback loop. Because the process of AI, once you automate everybody out of a job, people will say, well, then that creates new jobs. AI is a different animal. It's a completely different animal. And so with a lot of people who are now out of a job and then they can't get those jobs back and they can't go into another avenue because AI does cognitive work now too. What are people going to do? So now they're up doo-doo creek without a paddle because they have nowhere to go. It is a vicious cycle. It's a death spiral that has already begun. Let's continue this, and I'm going to show you something that I found. Let's get into it. But let's finish this up.
Paper in McGriddle.
Don't download the app.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a lot that's going on in this article. I mean, first of all, AI has got to be a part of this as companies are increasingly trying to, instead of, hiring, when we're talking about white collar workforces, hiring those new college grads, whose, by the way, unemployment rate has really skyrocketed and is quite high at this point. Rather than hiring those new college grads, they'll, use AI and force their existing workforce to work more to avoid building out their workforce and to save costs that way. You have them, what's called taking price. So using the excuse of tariffs and inflation and also genuinely, facing higher costs in certain regards, they're using that to hike prices even beyond what is required. And then the other thing they talk about in here is the financial engineering that's going on too. So share buybacks, they say, have helped put a shine on profits. Reducing the number of shares outstanding increases companies' earnings per share numbers mechanically, regardless of operating results. Overall, LSEG data indicates that repurchases added about 1.3 percentage points to the S&P 500's gains in the second quarter. So some of this is just, financial engineering, basically like smoke and mirrors sort of accounting tricks to get things to look better than they actually are. So that's a piece of it as well. But if you look through this article, they have a chart in there that's pretty stunning where they look at consumer spending, consumer purchases, and then they take out inflation, they take out the price increases. And the line, if you don't take them out, then the line of consumer spending, it's going up and people must be doing okay. If you take that out, it's flat since 2021. So, I mean, that tells you a lot right there about how, how fake a lot of the, the profits that are being generated here by these companies and how little bearing they have on what is actually going on with your average consumer out there.
Yeah. And again, this is the Biden story. Everyone understood that under Biden.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, the S&P was up by like 60% over the entire course. Were you 60% better off? If you were invested, yeah. If you were buying stuff, no. If you're buying steak at Costco, good luck. All right. To go ahead and, what a lot of people have done, if you really want to feel truly crazy, go into your Amazon cart and scroll all the way back to 2020 and go look at what you were paying for basics and then compare it to today. You can do.
So as far as, what happens as far as price increases as well as the way things are going and just in our daily lives is greed. And the crazy part is, here's another point that I wanted to make. These corporations are now saying that consumer spending is down. but their profits are still going up. But we can't afford anything. But then they're saving money through automation. Let me ask you this. With all the savings that they're getting through automation, are prices going to go down? No, look, I'm asking, are prices going to go down because now we have automation? Since they're not going to be paying actual physical people anymore, then that means they're going to be saving a ton of money through automation. If they're saving a ton of money through automation, that means that they should be able to go down in price while still making profit, right? Do you really think capitalists are just going to drop their prices like that? I'm going to share you guys something. So I decided to do something, and it may be wrong of me, people, but I had to ask. So I went to AI and I asked the question. I want to give you guys the results of my question. Now, did I go to Chat GPT or OpenAI, to any of those American ones? No. Because they could be skewed in a specific way, you know what I mean? I went the Chinese route. So let's go to DeepSeek, because I was curious about what this AI would say. So according to DeepSeek, I asked the question: when companies automate so much to the point where they no longer need human workers, those workers no longer can earn money to survive. Without money to survive, what happens to the companies that automated production? Here's what it says. Okay. It says, this is an excellent and fundamental question that gets to the very heart of potential social and economic disruption posed by advanced automation and artificial intelligence. It's often called the automation paradox, or who will buy the goods problem. The scenario described creates a vicious cycle that would ultimately be self-destructive for the companies that automate it. Here's a breakdown of what would happen. 1, the immediate economic collapse, the vicious cycle. This is a direct consequence of your premise. It says, first, loss of consumer demand. Companies exist to sell goods and services to customers. If a critical mass of the population is unemployed and has no income, the vast majority of consumers disappear. It doesn't matter how cheaply or efficiently you automate a factory can produce cars, smartphones, or coffee if no one can afford to buy them. You see that happening now, don't you? We're at that stage. The downward spiral. As sales plummet, the highly automated companies would see their profits vanish. Their stock value would collapse. And they would have no reason to continue production at full capacity and might even shut down entirely. The economy would enter a severe deflationary depression. Societal and political consequences. Long before the economy completely collapsed, immense social and political pressure would force a response. Social unrest. Widespread unemployment leading to poverty and starvation would inevitably lead to social unrest, protests, and potentially violent upheaval. The stability necessary for any company to operate would vanish. Government intervention. No government can stand by and watch its entire citizenry become impoverished. They will be forced to act, likely in 2 ways. Heavy regulation on automation. Governments could tax robots or mandate human employment quotas to slow down the pace of automation and protect jobs. New social safety nets. Says this is the most discussed solution. The government would need to implement a new system to redistribute wealth and maintain consumer demand. The most prominent proposal is potential solutions for surviving the collapse. To prevent this collapse, Society would need to fundamentally develop basic survival and ability to consume from traditional employment. Here's the main ideas. Universal basic income. This is the leading proposed solution. The government will provide every single citizen with a regular unconditional stipend enough to cover basic living costs. This money would be funded by taxes on enormous profits of highly automated companies and on the capital itself, the robots, AI systems. This ensures that people have money to spend, which in turn creates the demand that keeps the automated companies in business. Social wealth funds or sovereign wealth funds, the community or nation collectively owns a fund that invests in the automated companies and robotics. The profits from these investments are then distributed equally to all citizens as a dividend, similar to Alaska Permanent Fund that pays oil dividends to residents. So we have that, right? Then we have massive investment in the human sectors. Even in highly automated world, there will be sectors where humans are still preferred or necessary, such as caregiving for elderly and children, creative arts, skilled crafts, education, and experiences. Society could consciously invest in and value these fields. Shorter work weeks, instead of some people working 40 hours and other working 0, the remaining necessary human labor could be distributed more evenly, allowing most people to work for fewer hours for a living wage. Now, here's the counter argument. It says new jobs will appear. It is important to note that many economists argue that your premise is an extreme Luddite fallacy. Historically, automation has destroyed specific jobs but created new ones in industries. Example, the automobile destroying the buggy whip jobs, but creating jobs for mechanics, highway engineers, and auto designers. The critical question for the wave of AI and automation is whether it is different this time. If AI can learn to perform any cognitive or physical task better and cheaper than a human, then the mechanism of creating new unforeseen jobs for humans may break down. Here's a conclusion. If companies automated to the point where they needed no human workers and no compensating economic mechanism like UBI was put in place, the result would be economic death spiral. No workers equals no wages. No wages equals no consumers. No consumers equals no demand. No demand equals no sales. No sales means no profit. No profit means companies collapse. And then it goes back to companies collapse means no workers. Therefore, it is in direct self-interest of the automating companies to ensure that the population retains purchasing power. The survival depends on having customers. This is why many tech leaders and economists who advocate for rapid AI development are also strongest proponents of systems like universal basic incomes. It's not just altruism, it is necessary adaptation for functioning automated economy. Now, this is what AI told me. Now, here's the thing. There's a flaw there. Because yes, universal basic income is a solution, but is a band-aid of a solution to an underlying problem. Because a lot of times people go, oh, all we just need is a UBI. UBI will be fine. Just UBI. There's a problem with that. Let's go. All right. I responded, but these same tech and business leaders would raise prices made by a universal basic income and plunge the general population into poverty once again. What solution could be implemented to ensure that corporations and the business leaders don't squeeze people of their basic needs to live? And then it says, you've hit on the absolute crux of the problem. It's not enough to just create a new source of income like UBI. You have to build an entire economic system around it that prevents the new income from being immediately captured by powerful corporate interests. This is often called the inflation trap or rent-seeking objection to UBI. Your fear is valid. If every citizen suddenly had an extra $1,000 per month from the government, landlords might raise rent by $500. And corporations might raise prices on essential goods, effectively transferring that public money directly into private profits, leaving people no better off. Preventing this requires a multi-layered approach of regulation, structure changes, and countervailing forces. Here are the key solutions that would need to be implemented alongside UBI. I'm not going to read every single one. It says aggressive antitrust market competition policies. It says direct price controls on caps on essential goods and services. Designing UBI as a foundation, not a ceiling. It says public options to create downward pressure on prices. Funding UBI through progressive taxation, not printing money. And says 6, strong consumer protection and transparency laws. Says conclusions, says the package deal. It says the takeaways that UBI cannot work in a vacuum. It's not silver bullet, but a central pillar of necessary new social contract. The solution to preventing corporate exploitation isn't to abandon UBI, but to pair it with strong antitrust regulation, public options in essential markets, and progressive tax system fund it. This creates a balanced ecosystem, talks about UBI, antitrust and public options, progressive taxation. This combination checks the power of corporations and ensures the wealth generated by automation benefits society as a whole, not just a tiny elite. Without this comprehensive approach, you would fear would almost certainly become reality. But to me, this explanation just go far enough. It doesn't. Because now you have to put all these regulations in place, which can be broken down by the people who have control of our government. So, probe a little bit more. You want to see what I wrote? Let's probe a little bit more. All right, here we go. I asked, what if the power of corporations were taken away from the small minority of people and put in the hands of workers to own the means of production? Wouldn't that be more efficient than implementing a UBI that needs more safeguards to keep people materially intact? It says, absolutely. This is a profound and powerful alternative that cuts to the very structure of our economic system. You are describing a shift from capitalism to a form of economic democracy or socialism, where the workers who create the value would also own and control the means of production. I like that phrase, economic democracy. Isn't that beautiful? Economic democracy. There's a new phrase for you. Go ahead and use it. Take for it what you will. Run with it, baby. Run with it. Economic democracy. Because that's what we should be aiming for, right? Economic democracy. Let's continue on. It said this is not just a theoretical idea. It exists in various forms today, such as worker cooperatives. Let's break down the argument for why this could be more efficient and equitable solution than trying to patch capitalism with UBI. It says patch capitalism with UBI. Thank you very much, DeepSeek. It says the case for worker ownership, efficiency, and equity. And so it talks about your proposal addresses the core problem of automation by restructuring who benefits from it from the outset, rather than distributing wealth after the fact. It says alignment of incentives. A traditional corporation, the incentive is to automate or to eliminate labor costs and maximize shareholder profit. And a worker-owned enterprise, the incentive is different. Workers would likely automate to eliminate tedious and dangerous work, not to eliminate themselves. The gains from automation, higher productivity and profits, will be distributed among the worker owners as higher pay, shorter working hours, or investments into the community, rather than being funneled to a small group of external shareholders. This is part of the solution, baby. Built-in redistribution, not a separate system. The wealth generated by automation is automatically shared by the people who have a stake in the company. There's no need for a massive government tax and redistributed apparatus like UBI, because the distribution happens organically at the point of production. This solves the who will buy the goods problem inherently, because the workers are also owners of and primary consumers. Here's the answer, y'all. Here's the answers. Mitigation of exploitive practices. Sorry. Your concern about corporations squeezing people through price gouging is significantly reduced. Worker-owned cooperatives are far less likely to engage in practices that harm their community because the owners are part of that community. They have a vested interest in well-being of their consumers and neighbors, not just in abstract quarterly profits. Resilience and stability. Studies have shown that worker cooperatives often have higher productivity and are more resilient during economic downturns because their goal is long-term stability for their members rather than short-term stock price gains. They are less likely to engage in destructive behaviors like mass layoffs or moving factories overseas. This sounds like Roger. Were you replying to me in this? Are you the AI, Roger? Sounds like Roger. Challenges and complexities of a worker-owned model says when compelling vision, a full transition to a worker-owned economy faces itself a set of significant challenges. Capital acquisition. How do groups of workers get the initial capital to buy or build highly automated, expensive factories? The current financial system is built around lending to traditional corporations with concentrated ownership. New models of cooperative finance would need to be developed. Now, I'm going to come in here with, here's a point. Laws can change to favor worker cooperatives where the government can actually give subsidies and tax breaks and grants to these worker cooperatives in order to be able to build their businesses. And then they can do something like what they do to some immigrant business owners by allowing them to be able to forego or delay their taxes for 10 years. And then put them on a low interest loan to pay back the government after that 10 years for the loan that they've gotten, because most businesses don't make it to 10 years, right? So in order to ensure that that business actually gets built up, you make it so that you ensure that they make it to the 10-year mark. And you do it for worker cooperatives. And then on top of that, in order to help fund it, what you do is you build public banks in order to increase the amount of revenue that's generated. And then that profit that is created by the public bank, since it's owned by the public, that money and profit can be reinserted back into our government in order to lend that money to the worker cooperatives. And then as they build up, guess what? That money circulates within the local economies, and then it builds itself up there as its own ecosystem. And it's all because the workers own the means of production within that area. And so that we don't have to worry about this huge, massive inflation where people like you and me are struggling to survive. And then that also goes into the supply chain, because then it starts to affect supply chains and making sure that, oh, well, the people who, people who mine the iron ore are also part of a worker cooperative. Then the people who fabricate, right? They're the people who are part of the worker cooperatives. Then the people who make the machines are also part of a worker cooperative. And then it goes so on and so forth until it gets down to the restaurant. The farmers are part of a worker cooperative. And then the restaurant's part of a worker cooperative. And then everybody, instead of the money going up to a small few, it's actually distributed among everybody else. And then guess what? Everybody not just survives, but they thrive because the workers own the means of production. Let's continue. Scale and coordination. How would a large-scale complex supply chains like making a smartphone be coordinated through thousands of independent worker cooperatives? This requires sophisticated democratic planning and federated structures, which is complex governance challenge. So central planning. Who does that? Well, a lot of socialist governments actually do central planning models. Instead of having the central planning done by corporations for profit, It could be nonprofit through the government to do central planning. Because as we have seen, look at where the central planning through corporations has gotten us. How about the price of eggs, baby? Your coffee's going up in price. Why? Because we had to do a whole bunch of tariffs, and a lot of our coffee actually comes from Brazil, and we're increasing tariffs on Brazil. So now your coffee is actually going to cost a whole lot more. When in reality, all we have to do is that, if we can't do proper trade with, if we can do proper trade with places like Brazil and Colombia, maybe even some West African countries who can make the coffee. If we can't make it here, then we can have good trade over there. But if we can make it here, then we can have worker cooperatives that actually make the coffee beans, right? Instead, I'm just saying. It says risk and innovation. Critics argue that corporate model with its concentrated power and venture capital is better at funding high risk moonshot innovations. It is an open question whether a decentralized democracy economy could be dynamically innovative, though it would likely innovate in a different, more human-centric ways. Let me say this. The corporate model is better at funding high-risk moonshot innovations. No, it is not. It is not better at innovating. Here's why. Because they take the ideas that are funded through our public universities. Therefore, the ideas that are generated are actually through the public sector. So therefore, they're just stealing the public good in order to make profit. So they're not good at innovating. You can see that with everything being a super variation of the same old thing. Look at the entertainment industry. How many Fast and Furiouses do we need? Go to the grocery store. How many different versions of Cheerios do we need to have? Now you have banana Cheerios. What happened to just taking regular Cheerios and slicing up some bananas and put it in there? Capitalism breeds innovation. No, it doesn't. Same thing over and over and over. Look at the Apple phones. They add one little slight difference to it, and then they market it to you as brand new. That's not innovation. That's copy and paste. They don't innovate for crap. You mean to tell me they innovate? Meanwhile, what in the 1940s, 1950s, the Soviet Union actually created put the first man in space. They put the first satellite in space. They had Sputnik. And you mean to tell me that they don't innovate? Come on now. If the United States actually changed its economic model, we would be living Gene Roddenberry's dream right now. Transition says the most daunting challenge is transition from our current system. The existing corporate power structure has immense political and economic influence that will likely resist such a fundamental shift, as we see right now. It says UBI versus worker ownership, a question of strategy and scope. This isn't necessarily an either or situation. Many proponents of economic democracy see them as complementary ideas, but they represent different strategic approaches. UBI is often seen as reformist solution, tries to fix the worst outcomes in capitalism, poverty, lack of demand, without changing the underlying ownership structure. It is a cushion within the existing system. Worker ownership is a structural solution. It seeks to change the fundamental power dynamics of the economy itself. We don't want to cushion the system, because every single time we cushion the existing system, what happens? The cushion comes off. And then we're now sitting bare bones on our ass on this concrete. Instead, we need to change the system. We need to change the system fundamentally in the economy itself. And that will lead to actual reform. Says one could argue that a robust UBI could actually enable a transition to worker ownership by giving people the financial security to start cooperatives. It take entrepreneurial risks and resist exploitative jobs. Conversely, a widespread worker-owned economy might make a full UBI less necessary, as their need for redistribution would be lower. But you would need to do that before the corporations start jacking up prices to take it away from us. That's the problem with UBI. And the corporations, as soon as they saw that, they will already have the price hikes ready to go right as soon as you get your check. Conclusion, a more fundamental solution. Says you have correctly identified that UBI deals with symptoms, lack of income, while worker ownership deals with the cause and balance of power and ownership. Would it be more efficient? In many ways, yes. It builds the equitable distribution of wealth into the engine of the economy itself, rather than creating a separate mechanism, UBI plus heavy regulation, to clean up its negative effects. It directly solves the problem of corporations exploiting people because it eliminates the class of traditional absentee owning corporations altogether. Here is the piece de resistance. This is bars right here. Your suggestion is a more radical and profound answer to the question of automation. It argues that we shouldn't just find a way to feed people after robots take their jobs. We should change the system so that people own the robots in the first place. We should own the robots. We should own the AI. It should not be in the hands of these billionaires. And for all the menial jobs that we don't want to do, all right, fine, cool, let AI do it. While we make the paintings, while we make the music, while we write the poetry and the books, while we live our lives in a way that expresses what's deep within us as human beings, as we express ourselves through our emotions and dreams and hopes, and then we better ourselves. Fine. I'm not completely against AI. I'm saying that we should use it in order to uplift and elevate all human beings, not just a few. And that's the problem. The problem is that you have a small subset of people that want to replace people with AI. I want it to uplift us all. So then we actually own the means of production. And it doesn't take the very fundamentals of what makes us human away. Our creativity, our means to be able to relate to one another. And that's part of why I think it's so important. There's so much that we could do. Like, for instance, there are some jobs that people just don't want to do. There are some jobs that some people want to do, but it's like negligible how many people actually want to do it. We get automated. Cool. Right? But at the same time, we're not going to do it at the expense of people. We're going to do it at the benefit of everybody. And this is one of the reasons why I decided, because DeepSeek was actually made by the Chinese, and I wanted to go something that it's not influenced by capitalist interests that tries to push you in the direction of capitalism, because AI only learns what you teach it, right? So I decided to go with DeepSeek instead. But that's the point, is when people talk about AI is taking our jobs, that's under the capitalist model as to why they're doing that. It is because capitalism is anti-human. We need a human-centered system. And in a human-centered system, then we would look for models that uplift humans overall. Which means that we would look for an economic system that uplifts humans, not capital, not property. This is why we're going through what we're going through. This is why many of you are taking that poll, and really within the first two options, a lot of you guys are picking that one. Either you hit rock bottom or you're struggling just to breathe. A lot of us are picking that option because the system that we have is designed this way. It is not broken. That's like taking a firearm, pointing at your face, and then you pull the trigger and it hits you. Oh my God, it hurt me. It must be broken. No, it's designed that way. It's designed to kill. This system is designed to exploit. That's what it is. How are you surviving this economy? How? If you are the exception, not the rule. So many of us are hitting rock bottom as we speak. Some of us, it's the 7th. So a couple days ago, some of you paid your rent. You paid your rent, you paid your light bill, paid your car note if you have a card payment. You put gas in, you went to the grocery store. You paid on everything that you need to pay on. And everything's paid. But you have nothing left. You couldn't even put any money in your savings because you have nothing left. And then you're going to do the same thing next month. And the next month, and the next month. So you're just making it. But you have nothing left over for the future. Baby, that's called living paycheck to paycheck. Paycheck to paycheck. And all it takes is one emergency. Just one. And you are suffering. I want to share this as well, because this is why I focused on Gen Z. Make no mistake, millennials, Gen X, and boomers, we're all struggling. Boomers are actually becoming more homeless. Their homeless numbers are skyrocketing now. I talked about that last week. But let's get into this. This is why Gen Z graduates are in crisis. I'm not going to play this all. I'm just going to play just the first part, and then we'll talk a little bit more.
I've applied to over 100 jobs on LinkedIn, and that's just LinkedIn alone.
The job market right now is...
I'm Caitlin. I'm a university graduate, and I applied to 647 roles before I got one. Nobody will even give me an interview.
I basically am not able to get a job.
I really don't understand how people are finding full-time jobs. I really don't get it.
These are not outliers. This is the current reality of an entire cohort. 20 years ago, the grand path of life was a lot simpler. Go through school, graduate, go to university, get a degree, and waltz right into a job. A job in an industry where you'll spend the rest of your life. Simple. But explain that to your average 22-year-old and they'd laugh. It's no secret that things have changed. But over the past year, things have changed even more. Job listings are dropping, while job applicants are rising. And the result? A full-blown unemployment and underemployment crisis for the youth of today. It's leaving many young graduates navel-gazing.
Class of 2025, we need to talk. If you're a recent grad struggling to find a job, it's not just you, it's the numbers. Jobs have gone down, and the number of qualified applicants continues to rise. The 3-month moving average of the unemployment rate for recent grads currently sits at roughly 5.3%, well above the national average of 4.2%. This is a historic anomaly. This is likely the first time the number has ever been this high for new grads, ever. What this shows us is that entry-level jobs are being taken by AI. Now, it's happening.
Sadly, this is a worldwide trend. In Australia, graduate job postings keep falling year after year. All the while, graduates pour out of universities like a factory. In the UK, uni graduates are facing the toughest job market since 2018. More than half of college graduates are considered unemployable. China had a youth unemployment rate of 17%. But over in the US, recent grads are now more likely to be unemployed than the general workforce. All of this is absolutely devastating for those who have worked so hard to secure their future, only to feel like they've been lied to. So what's causing it, and how long will it last? To help with clarity and understanding, I've split this episode into 3 sections. Number 1, is AI really taking entry-level jobs? Number 2, how trade and tariff concerns have caused a hiring freeze? And number 3, the post-pandemic job market slowdown. If you're a student or recent grad, stay tuned. We'll talk about what can be done about this situation and what might still be worth studying to crack a job market this bleak. And lastly, I wanted to hear from you guys, so I ran a poll on my YouTube community. It wouldn't be a stretch to say that for many people out there, the scariest part of future AI is potential job loss. Since the Industrial Revolution, humans have always worried that technology would steal their jobs. And this traces back to the 19th century, when Luddites and textile workers would smash mechanized looms and set mills ablaze. Every major tech or automation wave has come with a wave of anxiety over what those inventions might do to us. But somehow, it's always worked out in the end. For example, the invention of the horseless carriage killed a lot of jobs, but created thousands of new jobs in making, selling, and servicing automobiles. Today you hear economists and of course tech giant CEOs singing a similar tune when it comes to AI. But the difference here is that although AI may just be a tool, it's different to any other tool that's come before it. It's literally the first tool that humans have invented that achieves general cognitive labor, and people are now starting to realize what that means. This is Andrew Cole. He recently posted a semi-viral video about how 3 of his skill sets have been replaced by AI 3 separate times. I'll play a portion of that for you now. Listen closely to what he's saying, especially in the context of the rest of this episode.
AI has ruined my life. Now, I know that might sound dramatic, but let me tell you why. I've always loved creative endeavors and projects, and I worked for a YouTube channel as a writer. To this day, the script I wrote for a series, it really took off. It got 3 million views. We made a second video, and that became the second most viewed video on the channel. He fired me. This guy then used AI based on the scripts I already wrote to make more lower quality videos, keeping the same series going. He's gotten millions of views ever since. So then I thought, well, publishing books on Amazon, because it looks like I have a knack for writing. These gurus on YouTube got rich from searching keywords and generating a book, using AI to write books. I just simply can't compete. I can't write that fast. I'm not here to complain, right? But it's just dawning on me that I can't compete with this AI, dude. And that's the problem that has basically been messing me up for 3 years. I've been trying to run for the last 3 years from the mass acquisition of skills, lowering the bars for skill sets to the point where your skill set suddenly becomes useless. And AI has been central to doing that to me. I wonder if anyone else feels like they can't escape their skill set being completely devalued by whatever new AI technology comes out next.
After listening to Andrew's story.
So this is happening while at the same time, I want to share this with you guys too, because there's a lot going on as far as it's not just Gen Z, it's also farmers too. Farmers are struggling. The people who make our food, yeah. Hundreds of struggling Arkansas farmers ask federal government to save them. So it says hundreds of struggling Arkansas farmers are pleading with the federal government to provide emergency funding amid farm economy crisis. Almost everything that can go wrong for Arkansas farmers went wrong this year, leaving many facing bankruptcy or even closure of farms that have been passed down for generations. A dismal global market and plunging commodity prices mean there's little hopes of breaking even as input costs soar because of inflation and tariffs on top of bad weather earlier in the year. So let's get into this, because there's so many people that are struggling right now. Even the farmers are now starting to see like this is completely unsustainable, to the point now where we can't even feed ourselves properly, right? So let me see. Let's get into this, because this has been in the making for a long time. And people will say, blame it just on Trump. It's not just falls on Trump. This also falls on the Democratic Party too. So let's get here. Shout out to the main Wong on here. Let's take a look at this.
Right now, we're in a very dire situation. September's upon us. Harvest is starting in the deep south, and we have 0 bushels of soybeans on the books to be sold to China for this current crop that's about to come out of the field. Historically, over the last 5 years, about a third of soybean sales to China would be booked. China amounts to 25% of our total U.S. soybean crop. So that would be 8 or 9% of the whole U.S. crop would normally be on the books with China right now, and we have 0. That is alarming. The farm economy as a whole is struggling. Inflation has caused our cost of production to rise drastically on every front. Commodity prices, in particular soybeans, are down about 50% from where they were 3 years ago. And our numbers are deeply in the red. And we send this letter to President Trump because we've been talking for months about needing to have sales in place, a deal in place, a phase 2 type agreement that has purchase commitments along with a level playing field on trade with no tariffs. And we haven't had anything happen, unfortunately. And our appeal to President Trump and his administration is make soybeans a priority in any trade negotiations that are taking place. Soybeans are the #1 agriculture export to China. And in the last trade war, it was 71% of the losses that we had as American farmers. And they're critical.
Yeah, so if we look at, and we're going to divide. So I'll stay with grain and oilseeds because that's what I do day to day. But I just have to say one thing about livestock. For livestock folks, we're in good world for them right now. So I'd love to be able to have as good a world that they're having in GNO, but we just don't. And so there's just so many things, and it's really a supply story this year. When you think about across the globe, we haven't had a year where every country's almost in all 8 cylinders where we're getting full production. And that's where we are right now. It's also too a bit of a dichotomy in the US is that we're building corn stocks, but the world is not. It's just the opposite in soybeans, where the world's building soy stocks and we're not. And so it's a very weird world, but the fact is we just have so much supply in the world that's just going to keep prices, really on the defensive.
And then it doesn't help that the Trump administration is imposing tariffs on China. And so now China's like, all right, well, we'll get our soybeans somewhere else. So this is harming not just those of us in just the average private sector, but it's also in food production too. And if these places have to close, well, we're screwed as far as our food is concerned. And so farmers, are now having to, go to church to pray that Donald Trump will actually reverse course. But this is really for the benefit of billionaires. People like Donald Trump, Joe Biden, and all, the people part of the duopoly, this is all in their making. But this is all part of the system.
Until the federal government steps in to save them, farmers have no one to turn to but God.
Farmers, in my opinion, Lord, it's only my opinion, they're closer to thee than anyone else on this earth because we deal with your earth every day. Dear Lord, we're hurting you, Lord. We can't help what's happened to us.
Until the federal government steps.
What do you guys think is going to happen with the people who may have supported Trump, especially in rural areas? And now Trump is showing his whole ass when it comes to the people who are in rural communities. When he shows them that he's just like Joe Biden. Do you think that people will start to turn against the two-party system? I very much hope so. I'm hoping. But this is the time where it's up to people like us to actually communicate with them and go, hey, you're not crazy. The problem isn't the Democrats or Republicans. It is the system. It is both parties. And so this is why we have to build up each other. Farmers are workers too. And so we have to build them up. And Black farmers have been sounding the alarm for a while now. They've been more disenfranchised than anybody. And now look, like remember I said, Black people are the canary in the coal mine. And now it's happening to a lot of farmers in general. So this is why it's so important that we have to come together, especially to combat this system. And there's a whole lot more information that I wanted to go over. But like I said, this is the reason why I put in just one segment, because this was going to be heavy and I didn't have enough time to do another one because I would literally be going, this stream would be literally be going to 3 and 4 hours if I had a second segment. But that's why we have to continue to check in with each other. And we also have to come together to combat this system. And what do we keep talking about here on RBM? We have to keep talking about building dual power, coming together to do mutual aid. For instance, there are programs, that we can come together with, like trying to build ways in which we can create citizen ballot initiatives, something in order to in order to push direct democracy. Because I'm gonna be honest with you, these things are the last peaceful effort that we have until something else happens. And that something else is coming. It's coming fast. So do what you can. But we got a system that we need to get rid of, and we need to make one that's more egalitarian and equitable for everybody. So, are you doing okay? How are you feeling? How are you doing in this economy? Let me go to the poll. and let's share what you guys have said. So how are you guys doing? So out of 185 votes, how are you doing in this economy? 13% said I hit rock bottom. 29% said I'm struggling to breathe. 45% said it's tough sometimes, but I'm okay. And then 13% said I'm doing good so far. Out of 187 votes so far. People are like, JB, which one would you pick? Honestly, I pick number 2. I'm struggling to breathe. This is the point where I'm scraping at the end of the month in order to make sure my necessities are paid for. And please don't get it twisted. Just because I'm here on YouTube, just because you see me in front of you doesn't mean I'm rolling in dough, right? Because we're not. Plus, I'm on a fixed income. It's hard out here. And have I hit rock bottom? Oh, you bet your ass I have. But to even get from rock bottom, even to get out of rock bottom and get to the point where you're struggling and you're trying to breathe, it's damn near impossible just to get out of that zone. To get to the zone where you're like, oh, things are difficult from time to time, but I'm okay. It's hard just to get there. Hell, why you think I got a crowdfund on my Twitter? You know what I mean? So there's a lot of us that are struggling right now. But I think it helps knowing that we're not alone, especially when we do what we can to assist one another to combat this system. So the question is, are you okay? If we come together and change the system, I can't wait till the day you say, absolutely. All right, everybody, go ahead and give a like to the stream. Thank you so very much. We're going to go over just a few comments in the chat, and we'll head on out. All right. So I'm going to check to see if we have any Rumble rants. If we do, then we'll get to those, and then we'll get into the rock fin. Okay, we're good on Rumble. Thank you very much. Let's go to the rock. All right. Let me make sure I got that out. Okay. Perfect. I'm actually curious to see what Roger says about the AI, what AI said. All right. So let's go into Rockfin. Thank you very much for this, Roger. He says, always remember, Reagan and Jack Welch were only able to do what they did, not because they were prominent, they were president of GE in the United States, but a decade before, the infrastructure was set up to shift power away from workers to consumers and the boss class. How did consumers divide the working class, you ask? Well, here's an example. Make you see how Amazon treats its workers, right? Now ask consumers to away from workers to consumers and the boss class. How did consumers divide the working class? Oh, here, make sure you see how Amazon treats its workers. Now ask consumers to withhold from using Amazon because of how they treat their workers. Here's a hint, they won't because they love it so much. Everyone loves them. Consumers is counter to worker solidarity. How we withhold from Amazon because how they treat the workers. Oh, wait. Why is it doing triple? Okay. How would we fix this? Consumer and worker cooperatives, specifically in the freedman community. I can hire one half of the working class to kill the other half. Jay Gould, the U.S. financier and railroad magnate from 1836 to 1892. Vanessa Williams, New Jack City, not NYC. Oh, okay, New Jack City, yeah. Jaybe, here's an exercise. Ask Brock, what are the pros and cons of shifting towards tying our currency to labor? People asked 2 things I sent on DM. Scratch that. People asked 6 things I sent on DM. I researched a lot of those things in AI over summer. James beat you there. I don't know if I'll be able to get into it, Roger. I'm sorry. I am like way behind. Because I got a couple of other chats I got to read before I head out. Yeah, I'm gonna have to read that another time, Roger. I'm sorry, but thank you. And then let's get into the chat here. So I literally got like 6 minutes. Let me address this. Let's see. Oh, wait a minute. Why am I sharing my screen? Okay. This one, thank you, Radical Leftist Extremist. He said, I'm still devastated you don't take me seriously about dumpster diving. You can get $10,000 worth of everything from CVS Dollar, Pet Thrift, Vitamin, department stores for free. I have done it for years. I'm talking about systemic solutions for systemic problems. If somebody wants to do it, then that's fine. But thank you very much for the super chat. Henry says, promise you, UBI is the capitalist solution to the capitalist problem. That's also very true. Roger says, JB, Arkansas farmers was what I was lining you up with Tuesday. Oh, okay, cool. I still want to get I think his last name is Boyd. He's a black farmer. I'm trying to see, man, I want to get in contact with that guy, man. I've been trying to get in contact with him, but part of me thinks that my channel's not big enough, and so it's like some people, they don't want to come on smaller channels because they feel like it's a waste of their time. But I don't know, man. That's trouble having a small channel. Some people will look at your channel and be like, oh, I don't want to come on there. It's a waste of my time. It's like, how many other people are having you on, Thank you very much for that, Roger. Jacqueline says, what happens to prison labor if AI is taking over? Sounds like this could potentially be a good thing, but I have a nasty feeling that the crimes classed as capital crimes would just increase. Yeah. Formula Stream says DeepSeek is vulnerable to being overwhelmed with corrections to its thinking from all the pro-capitalists flooding it with false information. That is also true. Kobo Rody says regulate capital is not hard. Not with the people who are owning the means of production, or just a small few, because they always pull back those regulations, and they bribe their way basically to they bribe their way into getting at those things peeled back. So James Stark says the People's Republic of China has plenty of AI, but no homeless and free education, near free healthcare. 90% of young adults own tax-free homes. Workers of the world unite in solidarity. Thank you very much. All right, so let me do. Okay, I gotta go. All right, everybody. Gotta go. But thank you guys so much for tuning in. This Tuesday, I'll be doing news stories, so tune in to that on my channel. And happy birthday to Zoya. And be sure to tune in to Savvy and Jaybe show this Thursday. And Nick is going to be on tomorrow evening. Well, everybody, time for me to head on out. And as we head on out, I just want to thank you guys for tuning in. And look, do all the things. If you got them, water your plants and water yourselves. And forehead kisses. Shout out to the patrons on the way out. You guys have yourself a beautiful day. I'll see y'all in the next one. Have a lovely one, everybody. Deuces, Bruce.